Hey guys, I give live presentations to university students around Asia on this topic and on similar academic writing and publishing topics. To invite me to your school, you can reach out to me via email. Thanks, and I'll talk to you soon. So our next section is on how to write an abstract for a journal or a conference. This is a little bit, we went from vague and now we're getting more specific. Abstracts are my favorite part of a research paper because you can read the entire paper in like 5 sentences. It's fun, actually. And how do you do that? Let's find out. Good. Definition of an abstract. An abstract is a self-contained, short, and definitive summary that describes the full contribution or content of an academic publication. An abstract can be read all by itself. I don't know if I say this later, so I'm going to say it now. You know on like YouTube videos when they're like, watch until the end of this video to learn how you can, right? Abstracts don't do that. They don't say, oh, read my paper to find out. They tell you instantly, here's what this paper finds. It's not clickbait. Goals of an abstract, part 1. The goal, should I read the entire article? Is it going to be relevant for me? Trustworthy? Interesting? These 3 things, this is what you learn from an abstract. Is it relevant? Yes or no? Do I trust the author? Yes or no? Is it interesting? Yes or no? Trustworthy comes with how easy is it to read. If it's hard to read, you might lose trust. How technical and sophisticated? Is it too technical? Is it too simple? Sometimes you know what you want. If you're a specific engineering field, you know you need really technical writing. So if it's too simple, you might go away from the paper. This is what the reader is thinking when reading your abstract. Part 2, screening by journals. If you do well, you proceed to the review stage. Maybe you get rejected. Screening by conferences, same thing, accepted or rejected. Easily remember core findings. Keep a copy of the abstract after reading the full paper. So I like to keep, if I'm going to use a paper, I'm going to copy the abstract so I can keep it, so I can have easy access to what the paper is about. Part 3, search engine optimization, also called SEO. So computers are easy to scan hundreds of abstracts online to find relevant research. This is really important if you can't find your paper by searching key terms. So you need to know what key terms you're going to use, which we'll talk about later. Abstract cross-referencing helps researchers discover new research areas and topics that were previously unknown when they began their research. Academic institutions and corporations will often publish abstracts and make them available to other researchers. So this will be public, but the paper won't be public, so more people will read this. The abstract sells your work. It's a sales pitch. Yeah, that's all. We're good. So, does this look right? We write our abstract and then we write the paper. Is this the order we like to do it in? Most likely not. Most likely writing your abstract first is too difficult. So most of the time, we're going to want to write our paper first and then move into our abstract. When you've written your paper, you know all of your main ideas, and it's taken time to develop those main ideas. It's not easy to develop those main ideas. So once you've developed all your main ideas, then your abstract becomes much easier to write. When to write the abstract? I'll just give you a hint, right? Write the abstract last after the paper is drafted. Right? Your article determines the abstract. Your abstract does not determine the article. A strong abstract tells the reader what to expect, summarizes the contributions, attracts the reader to read the full paper, has just enough quantitative results, quantitative meaning numbers, yeah, 30%, 50%, 200,000, is fully self-contained, and makes sense all by itself. There's our little summary of this section. Abstracts differ by field. Parts of an abstract vary according to discipline. This presentation gets interesting, I promise. Social science or scientific research abstracts, they often talk about motivation, problems, methods. This is where a lot of my reading and writing comes from. A lot of like problem statements and motivations, and then you get results at the end, of course. Discussion is obviously last. Humanities might talk about problems and then hypotheses. They might do much more background information. Then go into conclusions, and the conclusions in that case would also be results and discussion. So sometimes your abstracts are going to feel different for different fields. Length of your abstract, this depends on your professor, your major, your journal, lots of things. I don't prefer these longer ones. That's a preference because it just takes longer to read. And it also gives you, there's too much opportunity for you to write too much. A shorter abstract like this or like this really makes you, like you really have to be careful about what you want to say. So it's a lot more difficult to write these really short abstracts. Different types of abstracts, most common ones right here. Journal paper abstracts, conference paper abstracts, but you can also do research grants, literature reviews, masters and theses. Some people do tweetable abstracts, which is kind of cool. Language style for the abstract. Search and use exact phrases so they will turn up at the top of search listings. This is your key terms, SEO, search engine optimization. Each sentence typically represents a section of your paper. This is really nice. So you have the introduction, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion. Each sentence might be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is room for creativity as parts may be merged or spread among a set of sentences. Sometimes you'll see the results and discussion in one sentence, or the conclusion and discussion in one sentence. Staccato style is acceptable. Staccato, any music people? Yeah? What does staccato mean? Yeah, sharp or choppy, right? So it doesn't need to flow as well as your introduction section. It can be a little abrupt. Flow is less important in an abstract. And we'll see this later in a good example. Language style, be concise. Long sentences don't help the reader understand what you want to say to them. Concise sentences make sense. Yeah? Be authoritative. Correct example. We implemented a novel approach and evaluated efficiency gains. Weak example. We attempted to try. You didn't attempt to study, you did a study. So be much more active. We implemented a novel approach. Don't provoke the reader into searching for more information by using vague and unclear language. Weak example, a significant improvement in. What does that mean? What is a significant improvement? 5% improvement? 30%? Nobody knows. That's horrible. It's really weak. So we would say a 24% increase in. Don't compliment your own work. Avoid jargon and abbreviations. Jargon are industry phrases. If your paper is really specific, you need jargon, but in most cases, try to avoid it. Our revolutionary method, right? Our groundbreaking methodology, that would be complimenting your own work. So avoid that as well. Consider the viewpoints of a diverse readership when writing your abstracts. Rarely will the reader have your background knowledge. This is really hard. You have to be empathetic, right? What do most people know about my topic? Very little. So I need to write for them, not for myself, who is an expert. Keywords in your abstract. Most publications request keywords. This is for indexing. This is for online searches. And it's helpful to assign papers to review committees or editors that decides your paper's fate. You will see a set of keywords. Will your set of keywords be truly unique? Right? You want unique keywords so you can find your article. But truly unique, that actually is a little redundant. Really, we should just say unique. You don't want it to be unique. You want to use some keywords that are extremely common in the field, because then you know what field it's in. But if all of your keywords are very, very common, your study will never show up at the top. So it's a balance. Some of your keywords will probably be vague. Some of your keywords will probably be very specific. We don't have to read the abstract, but here's the abstract, and then often you see at the bottom keywords, value engineering, value management, education and research, professional institution, Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is super vague, right? Professional institution, a little less vague. Value engineering, value management, much more specific. So you can see this has a wide range. Again, longer abstract keywords, low voltage, distribution networks, Monte Carlo, voltage drops, voltage imbalance. So distribution networks might be the more specific keyword. Voltage imbalance seems very vague to me. Writing process. Rough draft. Have an abstract structure checklist. Write a few sentences for each section of your article. This is not concise yet. So the checklist comes from your professor or your target journals. Write a few sentences from each section. So the introduction section, here's what we talked about, methodology, results, conclusion. Assemble those sentences, put them all together. Trim back by removing unnecessary details. So maybe you have 10 sentences and you make it down to 6. Trim back by editing the language. Your 6 sentences turn into 5. Have a colleague review and critique your abstract, and then revise again. So this process is like really easy on paper. It's a little more difficult in real life. The revising process, just edit carefully. This requires several drafts. Ask a colleague to examine the abstract. Having new sets of eyes to check your abstract and offers new perspectives you've never seen before. It can also help you detect errors and ways to frame your sentences. Having peers give input is really important. That's all. We're academic writing, so we're going to be working together with people. My favorite thing to do is write something at night and then just read it in the morning. And almost every single time, I change something in the morning. Write better abstracts, part 1. I'm moving a little fast because I want to get to the real examples and spend more time on the real examples. So get ideas from other abstracts and peer-reviewed journals and apply them to your abstract. Wow, that sounds familiar. Emulate their style and apply those suitable to your own paper. So not just their grammar and their words, but their style. Right? What language are they using? Continued, part 2. Observe the key points that the authors selected to use in their abstracts to be published at your target journals. So key points, also this could be might be keywords. Keywords that authors used, and it'll help you target the right journal. Part 3, have professors, colleagues, and editors critique your abstract. No questions? Good. So please read this well-written abstract. So the first thing I notice is we start right off with good data. The data sets the stage. It shows you where the general area of study. So high risk for job stress. So when we see job stress, we know it's a relevant problem. So we're talking about a relevant problem, which is really important for academic research. High stress, and then we talk a little bit more about high stress. Psychological toll on workers, so it's a problem. So the high stress leads to more problems. And then we have a problem statement. Less is known. So we give good background information and data, and less is known is our problem statement, which means we're getting more specific. So less is known about the impact of job stress on physical health and how current findings translate to clinically relevant outcomes, yada, yada, yada. There could have been the word however. However would have been a good transition word. But remember before, if the writing is really well done, the transition word is obvious and you don't need it. So they don't even write it here. They just took it out. However, less is known. However is often in the abstract. I don't have a problem with however. It's a good indicator. But less is known is still really powerful. Less is known about the impact. Okay, now we know what this is going to study. We're going to go back to this abstract. Can you identify the introduction, the methodology, the results, and the conclusion? Can we identify these? So here we go. Here's the introduction, and then we have the methodology, into the conclusion, into the results, and into the conclusion. So it easily follows the flow of a paper, and this is your goal when you write your stuff. Sometimes you see a result of the study at the top as a hook. Sometimes you see it as a hook. That's not necessary. There you go. Notice how the methodology and discussion are short? That's just chance. Your methodology and discussion might be long. So this is not consistent for every paper. This study has a lot of results because they studied different aspects of men and women. So they had 2 groups. That means they had a lot of results to talk about. Okay, abstract by a student. We're going to discuss an abstract that was submitted to me last week. I've taken parts of that abstract and created some common things that we can all learn from. I've done this before in a presentation, and my caveat is always, there are common mistakes that everybody makes, right? So every correction I give is not one person's problem, it's a problem we all have, right? Okay, sentence 1. I want to say the problem is wordy. Remember, when I edit research papers, I always edit and make it shorter. So it's always what happens, right? Every research paper that gets submitted is wordy. It's just a fact of life, right? It's really hard. So in the general coffee market, whether chain or non-chain, coffee shops hiring people with disabilities is very rare. I wrote, people with disabilities are rarely employed by coffee shops in Taiwan. So this would be my first sentence. It says the same thing in less words, and I also got to add the word Taiwan. I think this is in Taiwan. I'm assuming it's in Taiwan. So we put the location really early on, because that might be interesting for people. Oh, my in Taiwan goes away. Why does my assume it's okay, assume my in Taiwan is still there. I don't know why. Why did it go away? So here we put is very rare into rarely. So there we go. We saved 2 words. Chain or non-chain coffee shops into coffee shops. Because if it's all coffee shops, right, every coffee shop is chain or non-chain. So we can just say coffee shops. This information may be okay in the introduction section. So you might be able to talk about both chain and non-chain as an idea in the introduction. But for the abstract, we can take it out and save words. And then hiring people, I wrote employ. Employ is a little more professional. That's all. It's a shorter and it's more professional. Does this make sense how we went from one side to the other? You can read this side and still understand it. It's a very understandable sentence. Yeah. Sentence 2. Sentence 2 reads, this research case will introduce Safe Fun Cafe. The establishment of this coffee shop came mainly from a foundation set up by a group of parents of people with disabilities. So my problems are, it's a bit passive. It's passive writing if you know passive-active voice. Passive writing, and there's too much details for the abstract. I'll show you in a second, but like the mainly came from, this makes me ask questions like, oh, well, where did the other funding come from? Right? I'm now thinking about what other stakeholders are there? Who are the other investors? So we take this out and then we give that information in the introduction section. A group of parents of people with disabilities is a little unclear as well. So I wrote, in 2022, I've added a date. It might be 2020, it might be 2019, I don't know. In 2022, a foundation that supports people with disabilities established the Safe Fun Cafe in Taiwan. So I've taken out the parents. Those will go in the introduction section. It's good information. I don't think we need it. I don't think we need it in the abstract. It's very specific, right? The foundation was set up by parents, and the foundation set up a coffee shop. It's like, you gave me so much of the pipeline. So a foundation that supports people with disabilities established the Safe Fun Cafe in Taiwan. Oh, there we go. There's in Taiwan. So I don't read it in the first sentence. I like the year because it focuses us. Is it recent? Is it a long time ago? If this was 2010, then this cafe is really experienced and we have a lot to learn. If it's 2022, it's a new cafe and they're still struggling to get the process right. Yeah? So the feeling about the cafe changes based on the year, and that's why the year is important. Write directly by including the year and location. Sentence 3, their core concept is lifelong education and the purpose is to help. My problem with this is, so in English, core concept, purpose, mission, goal, we have so many words. So I don't know what they mean. You could have picked any word, core concept, mission, purpose, goal, and I'm not really sure. So core concept is not specific enough. And lifelong education and help is also not specific enough. So, like, what does help mean in this case? Is it financial help? Is it personal help? Is it professional help? Is it mental stability help? We don't really know. So I wrote, this coffee shop hires, trains, and supports people with disabilities. So this is, again, moving into specific language. So we talked about their core concept, education, and to help. But what do they actually do? See the difference? Here's what they want to do. Here's what their goal is. Now here's what they do. They hire, train, and support. I made these up. These might be wrong, right? Maybe it's hire, train, and provide medical care. I'm not sure, right? It could be anything. And people with disabilities. Do I have a note here? Repeating yourself in academic writing is encouraged when you're doing phrases. What are other names that what are other phrases we could use for people with disabilities? Maybe a physical challenge, maybe challenged, maybe disabled people. I would write people with disabilities again and again and again and again and again and again. It doesn't feel right, but if you change the language, I think you're changing topics or you're introducing a new group. So when you use people with disabilities again and again and again, it keeps the focus right. And then you can read this sentence alone, and this sentence alone provides good information, right? This sentence alone, who's there? Why are they giving lifelong education and their purpose is to help? Help who, right? But now we know the coffee shop hires, trains, and supports people with disabilities. So I've changed this sentence into something completely different. There we go, people with disabilities. So let's put it all together. Do I have my numbers up here? Nope. Okay. In the general coffee market, whether chain or non-chain coffee shops, hiring people with disabilities is very rare. This research case will introduce Safe Fun Cafe. The establishment of this coffee shop came mainly from a foundation set up by a group of parents with of people with disabilities. Their core concept is lifelong education, and their purpose is to help. Transition over. People with disabilities are rarely employed by coffee shops in Taiwan. In 2022, a foundation that supports people with disabilities established the Safe Fun Cafe in Taiwan. There we go. There's my mistake. In Taiwan. I knew there, yeah, I deleted it on purpose, but I didn't delete it everywhere. This coffee shop hires, trains, and supports people with disabilities. I'll say this again. What I really like about this is I was not confused. So we made a lot of improvements, but I was not confused. So it's really difficult to get to this side on the left.